Batteries included, no assembly required. And realistically, I think in any of our businesses, you need to have some assembly, right? Onboarding and training and your verbiage, your language, your way of doing things, your values, etc. Like that has to be a part of it.
Being aggressively patient is like, especially on the training front. Hey, you can learn all these other things. You can raise your business IQ. You can learn marketing or salesmanship. You can learn customer service. But the patience is like the coaching front.
As we build multiple locations, we're still working as a unit, as a team. And that, above all else, is most important to me, about fitting in with the team and the culture and continuing to develop that culture.
Beautiful people, welcome to the Build Your Gympire podcast. You're in the right place for your gym owner, box owner, fitness pro who's looking to grow your gym, grow your business in ways that you, your team, your community, the people you serve, and not least importantly, your bank account are going to feel awesome about. Today's a little bit of a fun one. This is like real-time fun. So I'm in a bit of a hiring conundrum. And I thought this would be useful to get some insight because I think it's something that probably we all deal with, right? Mark, it sounds like you've thought of this and dealt with a little bit. Connor, I'm sure you have as well.
Grizzled vet over there.
Grizzled vet. We're in a bit of a hiring conundrum. And so we've got hey, if you're listening to this and you don't like our sports analogies, it might not be like, I don't know, maybe you're not in the right place. I'll try to explain it in ways that maybe our non-sports ball people would enjoy. But basically the idea here is, do you take the chance and hire, so you're building a team, do you take the chance and hire the high talent, just again, the person that we're considering hiring is not a diva, but just to use the sports analogy, the like Devo, really talented, high ceiling wide receiver type that might end up, blowing up the locker room and quitting the team in 6 months because of off the field issues? Or do you hire but also might like go to the fucking Pro Bowl their rookie year, right? Be an awesome contributor immediately. Or do you take the person that is like I'm going to be the steady journeyman workhorse left guard that's like a solid contributor to the squad for the long term, but may not contribute for the first year. You may have to have them have a season of development before they actually get useful. So I'm just basically utilizing you guys for some free consulting and feedback that might be useful for our listeners. So
I'll send you an invoice.
Okay, nice, sweet.
For me,
based on value.
Yeah, based on value. For me, if I just have that information, right? So exactly what you just told us, without digging a little deeper into more of the situation, from the front end, I'm just going to always go the team guy, because as we build multiple locations, we're still working as a unit, as a team, and it's that, above all else, is most important to me, about fitting in with the team and the culture and continuing to develop that culture. So if I ask nothing else, I'm going to go the team person. And even if it takes me a little bit longer and I have to invest a little bit more time into that person, I'm okay with that, as long as they're team oriented. Now, if I weren't just taking that at face value and asking you for a little bit more information, I would ask simple things as, how big is the need right now? What type of things are they going to be going into and doing? Do you need to fill that immediately? Is this something that could be a short-term fix, or are you looking for a long-term solution? Like some of those things, I don't think you can just take it at face value. There's some decisions where you have to make. Say you are talking like an NFL team, like there's a missing piece that if you had that person for that specific role right at that right time, then it makes sense. But there's some things that you have to have on the back end. There's things that you have to have set in place where it makes sense to bring in that person, where that kind of shaky background may fit into it.
So hit me with some questions. Consult me like we would a gym owner in this situation.
Is this the same for the same role?
Same role.
Pretty much. Same role.
Same role.
How much in the period of concept of time? How much time were the non-flashy, just the role player type guy be? Do you think how much it take? How much extra time and energy, resources would it take to get him ready to go, for him to actually earn
Well,
his keep. Because as we know, most people know, like very few instances when you bring a new team member on, there is a period of time that you have to be comfortable with them basically not producing for the company. It's investing, you're on board, you're investing them, you're onboarding them. And are you okay with that time
it's
period?
really sexist, Mark. Really sexist. So what if they're two female candidates? Or we're just using the NFL analogy. Okay, right? That's why you said this guy, right?
Sure. Which guy
That's
you're
fine.
bringing? Yeah. Yeah. Anyways,
Yeah. So these individuals, uh, it's like there's gonna be a training period regardless, right? So even with the shorter time to value higher, theoretically, there's going to be a training period, right? We think the time period for the more steady Eddie, like locker room guy, if you will, and I'm using that analogy as the NFL, thing where you have people all across the board. But to use that analogy, right, the training period would likely be extended for the locker room individual. um, Prompt me with another question. Help my brain work better. What else? What was the other?
and
What were
then
the
I
other
would say,
factors?
going back to the time and the goals of the company, which key piece would you benefit right now? Where it's like you look back, even 3 years from now, this guy joins your the all-star joins your team. He's pretty much one and done. But hey, we got a Super Bowl ring out of it. I don't regret that one bit. So if that could realistically happen, okay, great. We got what we wanted to accomplish. Was there any other collateral damage done in the process? Or maybe it's not
Mhm.
just you're not maybe it's just not the one team member that leaves, the all-star guy, but does he create a lot of disruption, dysfunction that bleeds that might be unrepairable? And you see that with Super Bowl teams when they have, a highlight season, then they revamp their roster entirely, and you're like, how are these guys not good? Like they were just so good.
Mhm.
Look at the downfall, and it's stuff that we never get to look under the hood on as a fan. But companies, it's the same thing where we know all the details and the inner workings of that. So that team dynamic, and I think to play on Connor's point, which I would majority of the time agree with exactly what he said. Give me somebody that just as coachable, team guy, core value fit that will do repeatable inputs for a repeatable output, I should say.
Mhm.
And that they can't really go wrong with that.
I
There's enough
also
uncertainties. There's enough uncertainties in business. Like give me somebody who's like as reliable as they come. Then I start diving into like who's more stable on the personality front. Do we know what we're gonna get? Um, and then without going too specific, unless you certain people that are ultra creative and they need that emotion, they're high, they do what they can do on that emotion. Um, if that's the what role that's called for, then disregard my last comment, but you can decide that.
I also think it depends on the stage of business that you're in. I mean, you guys are very established and you can, not just you guys specifically, but for an established business to bring in someone, you kind of need them to play in your sandbox the way that you want them to play in your sandbox. Um, and it could be a little bit different if you're somewhat of a newer, less established business where you're trying to put things in place and actually move the needle to where you could bring that person in and they could bring new, fresh ideas. It's not like I'm halting fresh ideas. I'm all for new way of doing things and doing things better and all that stuff. But once you're established business, you kind of have some things set in place. So that person needs to be able to come in and recognize that and kind of fit within that mold. Now, if it's let's just say, Mark, I see you have something, but just hold that thought for a second as you sip your Starbucks. No free shout outs. Okay. But if it's something that you guys are now maybe looking at creating a new department or new arm to the business, and this person would like champion that, that could be a different
Mhm.
situation, different role. But if it's coming in and kind of sitting within your core business, that person needs to play by the company rules and kind of fit into what's already been established.
That was to switch the sports analogy to. What he's talking about is exactly what the Bulls did with Dennis Rodman,
Yeah.
because he was the bad boys. He went to the Spurs. He was a head case. We can control him. And then it was like established core group of leaders. Michael Jordan said, "I can handle him." Phil Jackson said, "I can handle him." Scott, it
Same
was all
same
that
thing
stuff,
with
right?
same thing
So
with
it's just like,
Randy
yeah,
Moss and the Patriots.
yeah. So it's the same thing. It's like depend. So now you're actually evaluating the leaders of your team and how strong your culture is of your business within the team. And this is why making key hires is so mentally exhausting and draining, because if you really approach it from all these different angles, there's a lot to consider because you're also assessing your current progress and the current state of where you're at, and also a good reason to stay up to date on this quarterly. Um,
Mhm.
And then
and
just
so, yeah.
also the financial piece. So usually if you're bringing in a Pro Bowl person,
Popola.
that person is going to be more expensive. So is it the point of, and it could not be, might not be in that case, but if I'm looking to bring in let's just say back into my training business, if I'm looking to bring in an established trainer that has a lot of experience that could literally, let's just take the team guy away from it, like he checks that box, but
Mhm.
he's got 10 years of experience. He was a master trainer, GM at Equinox or something like that. That person is going to be much more expensive to the business by bringing that person in versus kind of bringing in that more, not that entry level, but more of that, not so much experience and kind of building that person up and to fit into that role, not necessarily that person that could sit right in there. So, especially gym owners, I'll take it away from you for a second, GR, but especially gym owners, finances make a whole lot of
Mhm.
bring a whole lot of weight into this decision. You can't always hire that A+ player just because you can't afford them. And you don't want to put your business in a bad situation by forcing that hire. So that's
Yeah.
another thing that you have to look at.
So to build on the gym owner side of things as well, which this is exactly what we deal with all the time, especially in a period of growth and expanding locations and building out the teams, but also with staff turnover as well, where we had this happen multiple times in the last year where we had more of an established team member leave, salaried team member, but then, hey, we have our pipeline built up, entry level coaches, which this is why we focus on our pipeline, our bench, and our onboarding of these new coaches so feverishly, because we know this is happening, this is inevitable. So now, if we lost a salary person, and we can just replace them with somebody at the right time for the business, right time for that individual, and they actually reduce the expense, reduce the payroll of the business, but we know they may be limited, that sometimes it's okay. And then even right now, as we launch another facility, it's like we got room for one or two all stars because we need to go now. We want to make sure they're established. Um, is that something off the street, or do we elevate from within and do that? But anyways, what Connor's saying is exactly right on the financial pieces of the business. And so to look ahead to say this making our fifth location, and we're just going to chill for a second and you're refining, I think it's a bigger thing as well, because right now our goals of the company is like, hey, we're building this building, we're going to outfit it, like growth and expansion is very expensive and costly. So as much as I would love to say technically we can afford, hey, we're going to go hire 5 all-stars and we're going to go be just we're good with that. That's not the best business decision right now from put the business in that financial state. So it's a great mix, and that's when you have to make wise decisions and listen to this episode and think through all these different scenarios and trains of thought that we're talking on.
I think it's a fun ass thought exercise. Like that, one of the issues, because I think we compare things to what we know, right? And so I'm obviously, like football guy, whatever. And one of the issues with with one of these concepts, oh yeah, are you going to go win a Super Bowl? Well, the issue with the NFL, all right, with any sports ball type domains, is that is a finite game, right? The difference between infinite and non-infinite games, by definition, finite. Dude, you get to the end of the season, there is one goal every season. There's one person standing at the top of the totem pole every year, and then it's over. Everyone kind of has a clean slate, and you start over, right? Which sort of, it can make sense to bring in someone for these like short term. Yeah, you're going to be an all-star player for a year, and if it doesn't work out long term, like we got a Super Bowl out of it, cool. In business, it's not that. right? So in business, the game just keeps going. And so that's, that's one of the thoughts that I think we need to kick around as leaders, whether it's in the gym or in the agency or whatever it might be. The other thought that I have with this um again, that I'm kicking around, and I don't know that we're going to come to an answer, so maybe it's just useful to hear some of our thought processes and how people who have all hired a bunch of people think about this hiring stuff. If nothing else, maybe it's some vulnerability. Hey, we still think about this and have tough decisions and aren't necessarily always sure what the right decision is. But the there's a time to value aspect of any hire, right? Of any decision that you make, I guess, in the business. So there's a time to value aspect of how long it will take to train the person. The other side for us in this particular situation right now is, what is the probability that it doesn't work out sooner than later? And now you're back to square one and starting over with that training process. You have even longer time to value, even though the all-star, right, might have had that shorter time to value. If they leave right at the end of their training period because they can't fucking focus, or they're not a culture fit or whatever else, now you're starting over and you're even worse off, right, than you were in the first place, which I think is another notch on the whatever you want to call it, the less ready.
Yeah, I'll speak to that too, because the timing, like we just mentioned, is everything. So I think it's important to know, and you have the details of the role and all this stuff. So I think you think about this stuff that we're talking about sooner than later, and before you really start to dive down deep into this, because then this is your interview process. This is the potential obstacles. Now that could identify, because you know what kind of problems you want to have. And there is not a right or wrong decision. It's just you're trying to reduce the risk and the likelihood of just going backwards too far if something were to happen. Like, how do I insulate myself a little bit with this? And really think that through. I know I do that. I'm very discerning, but it's almost to like, that's why, again, hiring is exhausting on this front. And what's made it easier for me is to think through these scenarios. You kind of know what you're looking for, and then you absolutely have we absolutely need to have this. These are our non-negotiables. And then this is kind of what I might be okay with, but at least I'm aware of it. And the term I've been using a lot more is just yellow flags, like in hiring, where kind of create this common language where it's like that red flags, they're probably not getting to me. But then yellow flags are just kind of like, let's be aware of that. Let's try to dive in that in the next interview, um, and see if we can pull on that thread a little bit. And how do I align my questioning with what I'm looking for? And this is where, on the all-star type, I'm going to go see him. I'm like, hey, how coachable is he really? Has he been jumping around job to job? What does that timeline look like? Address that with him. How do I know you're not going to do that with us? That's my concern, because then we're going to be starting over from scratch. Can you see my point of view a little bit too? And I'm going to start to just pepper those things and really push those yellow flags and see how they react. And then I'm going to come back to the next interview and try to pull on it again to see if they have a consistent answer. That's why I think it's really we have to hire. I think we have to hire more quickly these days. However, I heard that advice and I agree with it to some degree. I think we need to be timely in our communication, but we hire people fast. Like, it's never good. Not for bigger roles. I think you take your time, especially in the gym world. I think you take your time and you kind of go from there. At least have multiple steps. You can move it along quickly, but at least you have multiple steps, and you know there's a purpose for each one of those steps, and you know what success looks like that you're looking for that specific purpose, that role, and that specific time in the business. So that's my 5 cents on that.
I have a question. I'm not 100% sure how to phrase it. So at what point do you consider hiring for, so to use the sports analogy, right? The journeyman, or the non-immediate Pro Bowl contributor, right? The unproven entity in this case. You've got the risk of them never being able to actually make the team and contribute, right? Of them never being able to do the bigger role. What do we do?
I think that's very clear benchmarks, though, and that's just your onboarding plan and clear expectations of this. You're just not here right now. This is how I know you when you will be. This is the resources I'm going to provide you. This is the guidance I'm going to give you. However, to get there, I got to see that you want to do this as well, and not just when we're paying for it on the company dime. Like, this is something you need to invest your time, personal and professional time. And that's just, is this a goal of yours? It's a goal of the company's. Are we aligned with that? If not, you're going to tap out, or cap out, I should say. And then if that's not okay, then you probably need to tap out and go find elsewhere because you've reached your limit here. The growth oriented team guy is going to learn and grow and want to do all that. And in the process, and here's to maybe lend you a little bit more of just, breathing room. Your business will look entirely different in a year than it does right now. And so if you have the right people growing with you, they're on the bus, they're on they're on the right track with you, whatever it is, those people tend to fill other gaps, especially as they gain your company knowledge, industry IQ gets raised. They potentially could have multiple roles. So I would take, you see this all the time in the NFL. They find a lineman who go and play one position. You're gonna hire a stud, great. Otherwise, I'm gonna get the value guy who can play, he's an interior guy. He can play both guards, he can play center, whatever it is. He can be that guy's valuable. And I can move him based off what the team needs at the right time. And he has a valuable roster guy, and he's probably at a little bit discount because he knows he's not that all-star stud. So I think that's something I think we want to have all the answers right now. But in a growing company, your company needs are going to look drastically different. And I think that's why it's like, go with the gut. I'm like, don't have fine. Hey, hey, by the way, GR, he could be a solid person, but a year just never reached that peak. He's like 80% of the way there, but he wasn't costly in the meantime to get there. You really reevaluate. Sometimes I don't think we need, and by doing that too, you also realize the role isn't as, full as you may thought, and he needs to dabble in some other areas as well. This is real common in the gym space.
Mm-hmm.
I just need a salesperson to do 40 hours of sales a week. How many hours of sales do you actually do? I just need a trainer to just, coach 30 sessions. I just need a full-time trainer. Can they coach 30, 40 sessions? No, they can't physically do that. Like, so you really need a part-time trainer, or so it's just like that train of thought is really vital and is really pivotal, and I'm living it right now. And I have lots of experience in that regard. So that's my advice to you is, that's why it's like the divas, they're not, like, in a year from now they may not be there, or how adaptable are they? And if they're going to just leave just damage in their wake, it's not worth it. They're difficult to work with. They bump because now you're managing the team, you're managing the locker room, where that's other valuable too. If they're taking time and energy from your other valuable staff members, that's a tough one. They can low cost individuals, batteries included, and low cost. I'm not talking financially. They're low cost.
Yeah.
They're easy to work with. They're not
No drama.
expensive in that regard.
Yeah.
So if flip side, if I do pay that all-star, they better not be like, I'm paying you out financially. You're expensive financially to the business. You also can't be expensive on the personality and emotional front. Like, if you want to do that, then I probably have to downgrade your pay. So
that's a good point that I think a lot of folks don't consider is the non-financial cost. Not just of I think maybe we've talked about the non-financial cost of training and onboarding somebody, but the non-financial cost of the off the field shit, or the dynamics of the team and your drama and whatever. Like, I think that's a huge factor that doesn't get
two areas in the
considered enough.
training world too. It's like that part-time trainer who, like, on paper, like, oh, he's not the best trainer, he doesn't know this yet, but the members love him. He adds energy to the session. Okay, great, which is fine. We have those types, but then behind the scenes, backstage, maybe they're not the best teammate, all that. That's a different story, because then I'd be looking to cut that person too. But the members love him, and then there's a solid team guy, and people like being around him. Even make their employees, the other staff members or team members, enjoy being around. They enjoy being at work better. I will take the average again, if he's serving our members, but I'll take the average trainer, X's and O's trainer, and everyone says that, oh, I can develop them, I can do this. It's like, but that's expensive too. Like, I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying, like, in the terms of your character traits and the headspace, and how much extra this bleeds into other expenses, literally, whether it's members leaving or other trainers not liking that person or carrying their load, or just, it's like, that's super valuable. and a good concept to understand as you grow and develop a team. And I think we've done a great job of at Power Strength to be able to identify those types, because then we have a little bit more safe grace with them from an X's and O's standpoint. But now we can really dial it in because they got everything else. Hey, this is just the tipping point. Or sorry, this is just the ceiling you're at right now. But I know you can get there when you do all these other intangibles already there. This is how I know I can have a really strong career for you and a strong role for you sooner than later. But training and this stuff just takes time and takes reps to do. Are you willing to put in the work? And that's when I coined the term aggressive patience. And now people are stealing that term and using it. So you can use it. But being aggressively patient is like, especially on the training front, hey, you can learn all these other things. You can raise your business IQ. You can learn more marketing or salesmanship. You can learn customer service. But the patience is like on the coaching front. Like you got to wait for that a little bit. You got to expect that. That takes time and energy. That takes reps. Um, so we can be there, but you got to be aggressively patient. And I think the more aggressively patient people you have, especially on the developmental side, you're going to be in a great situation. And that's where we currently are with our staff. That's why it's exciting. It's also frustrating because you got people that are almost there, but they're not there yet. So you have to keep moving forward. Okay, by when are they going to be okay? When can we anticipate this? And are we doing our job as leaders and managers to get them to that point?
So how do you define the Mark Innes trademark aggressive patience?
I don't want to blunder it right now. Let me think on that one. Maybe I'll send it next week in our in-person mastermind. Maybe the
There we
in-person
go.
Gympire mastermind is next week. I will have a definition for our closed door group that and pay us basically to say so. This has already been too valuable, I think. So I'm not let's not define that right now. Way too valuable
I'll,
right
t-
now.
I'll,
This is a free
I'll tell you
podcast.
that
Like this is
while
years,
we're
this
on,
is decades of learning sale, like this is decades of learning development and staff and hiring and oh man, decision making.
the people are paying us with their ears. I'll tell you one thing that I've been kicking around with this hiring stuff. And it's not, unfortunately, you don't always find people that have this, but we've heard from past mentors and books and everything else talk about hiring people with batteries included. Right. Okay. Right. When I think of batteries, I think of energy. Right. So like, I don't necessarily want to have to constantly be firing somebody up to show up to work every day. Like they kind of have to come with their own energy and whatnot. But the other side is like, and it doesn't work in terms of the toy or the furniture space that I'm pulling this from, but there's like no assembly required. So I've added the comma of, man, our ideal situation would be, particularly when you're a more mature business and you can afford to hire top talent right from the jump. It's like, yeah, batteries included, no assembly required. And realistically, I think in any of our businesses, you need to have some assembly, right? Onboarding and training and your verbiage, your language, your way of doing things, your values, etc. Like that has to be a part of it. However, like yes, and limited assembly required, meaning oh, I might have coached athletes before. I've got all this background in training. I know how to communicate with athletes, et cetera. Like that's going to be there's going to be less assembly required for that individual than somebody who has, one of our mastermind members likes hiring people with a musical theater background. Right. And it's like, that's fantastic. They have some different positive qualities, et cetera. But there's going to be some additional assembly required on the fitness side, which is fine. And that can work as a strategy. But, I think if you could find those people that have like limited assembly required,
I really
comma,
like that.
also
I'm going to
values
use
fit and
that.
keep it.
I'm going to use that in the way that I use those things. I'm going to make a change to the batteries included line that everyone says. This is
Yeah.
the first. This is the first. This is the level. This is the level that we go here at Gympire.
We're breaking new ground on the
It's
BYG
not. It's no
podcast.
longer batteries included because what happens to your batteries eventually?
Batteries die out.
Batteries die out. So we want rechargeable batteries included.
I thought that was gonna. I honestly thought it was gonna be way better.
I was
That,
waiting. I
yeah.
was waiting for the big thing, and it's rechargeable batteries.
Well, think about that.
Fuck it.
I wasn't going to
Tesla
say
power
I was
block
going to say
included.
renewable energy, but that's not. It's the
Mark,
same.
you're on.
Rechargeable batteries included because batteries included, yes, but they have to be able to recharge themselves.
You're on a
They know they're
timeout.
going to get down.
For 2
They
minutes.
know they're going to get down. They got to be able to bring themselves back up. That's
We
huge.
gotta have the.
All
We
right,
gotta
I'm
have
gonna.
mute the mics on the
Yeah,
debate.
Mark, you're muted for a little bit. I going back to this. I
I
just
thought
think
it was
it's.
amazing.
I think either way, GR to wrap a bow on this, right? I think either way, you have to lay expectations on the front end for whatever employee that you choose. I think going back to the gym world here, we do such a good job with clients of meeting them where they're at. and doing starting point sessions and initial consultations and all that stuff. And then we draw out a plan for them. And great gyms do that. People don't do that with employees. It's just like, all right, I made the hire, we're good. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
think if you go the uh, non all-star, but kind of like a developmental play, then you just lay the expectations of here's where we're at, here's where I need you to be, here's the plan that we're going to get you there. If you go the Pro Bowl player that um is kind of already assembled, then it's like, hey, I know, your experience, I know your background, and this is how we operate. Are you able to do that? And you lay the expectations up front, and then you move forward with it and you manage those expectations. I think that's super valuable. In one sense, we talked about headspace, and with our companies, the owner's headspace is one of the most important things that there is within the company, and gauging success. And with that more developmental person, it's like my headspace will probably be more so taken by how long it takes them to get up to par and up to speed of what we need within the initial onboarding, versus that headspace for that Pro Bowl player if there's going to be some, friction within the team and friction within the non-locker room-ish type person. um, is my headspace constantly going to there? And if that takes over the a crazy amount of headspace because you're always kind of like walking on eggshells with to me, that's not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And I go back to Mark. I 100% will take the more developmental play as long as they fit within the culture. Um, I think is it Lencioni that has the book Ideal Team Player?
Mm-hmm.
That is a phenomenal book. And it basically talks exactly the situation that you're going through right now. And it's just like, it's tough for you to, as the owner, to always talk about team, 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 team. Hey guys, we're a team and we need to do this. And I've met several of your staff members, and like, I don't know how other agencies are, but the level of like team and togetherness that you guys have is pretty unbelievable, considering that you guys are all remote and not in the same place. So it would be really tough to preach all this team stuff and team first and hey, we're in this together, and then go and screw that up by making a hire that is goes against that. Because then what type of um look and authenticity does that have and say about you to your team? So all
Well
these
said.
things, it's not an easy thing. I think that so many people are looking for an easy answer. One positive is that you have two people. You're looking at two
Mm-hmm.
people like within that. I mean, we didn't even talk about that. Most people are kind of pigeonholed and they have one person. And they're like, well, I guess he's it or she's it. The
Yeah.
person's it.
Yeah.
Um, so you know what I mean? Like, so that's a positive right there. So bottom line is you have those two people, you have to weigh so many different questions. And at the end of the day, that's why you get paid the big bucks.
Oh
And you
yeah.
have to weigh those questions and you have to kind of decide of like, what do I need now? What do I need in the future? It's a constant battle of like, what do we need right now? What's the plan for the future? So good luck with you. Good luck with your choice. Please let us know on the
Please don't
next
mess it up because that's
Gympire
going
podcast.
to ruin my experience with your agency. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this is great. I appreciate the hell out of you guys. If listeners are three listeners that watch this podcast, if you enjoy this type of thing, like us kind of working through some of our own individual issues somewhat out in public, let us know. We might do more of it. Mark never has problems, but me and Connor definitely do. So we'd be happy to discuss more and utilize free consulting of the Gympire Brain Trust. Love hugs. Got some fun stuff coming for you very soon, including a super secret interview with the first ever official guest of the Build Your Gympire podcast that Connor and Mark don't even know about yet. So we'll see you in the next episode.